Well, hey there, this is Seth, and in this video, I want to add a little bit more clarity to the process of how to generate a direct mail list for the purpose of buying vacant land. And when I first created my blog years ago, I did a similar video to this, but it was a little bit more general, just showing like how to pull a list with Agent Pro just in general. But it didn't really drill down very far if you're specifically trying to look for vacant land, which is really what my business is. Now, I will say most of the time when I get vacant land lists, usually what I'm doing is I'm getting it directly from the county and I'm getting specifically a delinquent tax list. But the problem with working with a county is that the information can be very, very good, but it's also usually a lot more expensive and just a huge hassle to get. And when you get the data, it's kind of a mess and takes a lot more time and just mental energy to get through that. And there are some counties out there where Agent Pro can be a viable alternative. And considering the price and just how much easier Agent Pro makes it to filter the data and get the list and sort through it, I just want you to understand, if I was ever trying to pull a vacant land list through Agent Pro, these are the general things I would do to try to get that. So with that said, as you can see here, this is the Agent Pro login page, so I'll just go ahead and log in. And once you've logged in, you're going to see something like this. We're just going to go up here and click the Farm button. And the first thing you're going to want to do is just pick out the county where you want to pull your list. And before you do that, something you should understand is that in the AgentPro247 database, not every county in the US has current and up-to-date data. And one way to figure out if the county that you're looking for has what you need is to go over here to this Tools button and then click on Geographic Coverage. You're going to see a map that looks like this. And just for example, I'll show you, this is kind of an extreme example. Most states are not like this. But if I was to go up here to Montana, as you can see here, this just lists out every county in Montana. And there are some counties out there that don't have any data at all. So it's literally not even an option to get this data in these counties. And of the counties that do have data, some of them are up to date. As you can see, I'm recording this video as of September 2016. So, counties like Flathead County, Montana, that's pretty accurate data. That's just a few weeks old. But Custer County hasn't been updated since 2014. And then Park County hasn't been updated since 2013. So before you just start running after a county, you want to understand and verify that that county data is actually current and accurate in Agent Pro's system. And this is one way to do that. If we were to go over here to California, which is going to be quite a different story because these counties are a lot more populated and have a much larger tax base with which to keep the county database updated and populated. As you can see, these counties here are much, much more current and up to date. Literally every single county has data and almost all of them are like within just a few weeks of being updated. And in this example, I'm going to go after Sonoma County, California, and there's nothing particularly special about this one. I'm just kind of picking it at random in a state where I know the data is most likely going to be updated and current and accurate. So we would go up here and pick California like this, and then we would just type in Sonoma. And the first thing we see over here at the top is these filtering bars. And this first one up here, if I wanted to, I could filter only the properties in this county that fall under certain addresses or address ranges, or with certain owner names or zip codes or area codes. That's all an option if I want to. But for my purposes, I usually don't care about this stuff. I'm really just concerned with the fact that, yes, the property is in Sonoma County, and that's really all I need to know. So in my case, I'm just going to skip this whole first step. If we go down here to property use and characteristics, this is where I'm going to start putting in some very specific information about the types of properties I'm looking for. And there's actually a few different ways to do this, depending on how specific you want to get about the types of properties you want. For example, if we wanted to get very, very, very specific, this one right here, the county use code, gives us just tons of different options to choose from. So if you've got a very specific type of property in mind, that's one way to do it. Usually what I would do is go up here to this one at the top, which is a lot more high level and broad. It gives us much fewer options to work with. And I would be picking things like agricultural and rural. Commercial vacant land, you could pick that. I typically don't because usually environmental laws get involved with commercial vacant land transactions. And to keep my life simple, I just steer clear of those. I'm not saying you have to do that, but that's what I do. So that's just up to you. Then I click on things like recreational, residential vacant land, and SFR. And SFR stands for single family residential. And I'll explain in a few minutes why I'm clicking that, because I'm not necessarily looking for houses, but I can still click that and get vacant land properties. And I'll get to that in just a second. So that's one way I could do it. Or alternatively, if I wanted to just clear this out, I could also go here to use code, and it's kind of in between the two where it has a lot more options, but it's not as big of a list as it could be under the county use code. So for example, if I was going to go this route, I could click on these top two here. Anywhere where you see like city, municipal, county government, federal government land, anything like that, you generally do not want to click on those because you're probably never going to be buying land from a government unit. So that's why you would generally steer clear of that kind of thing. Just so you know. Commercial vacant land, again, I'm going to skip that. I'm not saying you have to, but I'm going to. Farm, we can go ahead and click that one. Government vacant land, I'll definitely want to steer clear of that one because I'm probably not going to be buying land from the government. Industrial vacant land, similar to the commercial vacant land, I'm going to steer clear of that just to avoid any environmental issues. Mobile home park and mobile home. I've actually bought a lot of vacant lots that were zoned for mobile homes, so that's why I'm going to go ahead and click on those. Those can be really great deals. Multifamily vacant land sounds good to me. Residential vacant land sounds perfect. Single family residential, again, I'll click those and I'll explain that a little bit more in just a second. Timberland sounds awesome. Vacant land, of course. And then we'll want to make sure this include bubble is checked. And as you might have noticed as I was going through that, there were a lot of options and there were items in there that I could have picked, but I didn't. And it just goes to show, like, there are many, many, many different ways to generate a vacant land direct mail list. And it depends entirely on what types of properties you're looking for, what types of owners you're looking for, what types of values you're looking for, what sizes of properties you're looking for. So this is by no means a cookie cutter approach that you have to follow when you're doing your list. This is just one of many potential examples that you can follow depending on what types of properties you're looking for. So just keep that in mind as I'm doing this. If we scroll down over here where it says things like building size, number of beds, number of baths, none of that stuff applies to us because we're only looking for vacant land. So we're just going to keep all that stuff blank. One thing that you may want to fill out depending on the sizes of properties you're looking for is lot size. For example, I've come across like hundreds of properties in my time that are just like basically useless properties. They're like 0.1 acres. They're too small to do anything with. And if we want to avoid those types of properties, one way we can do that is to specify the size range that we're willing to accept in our list. So for example, if we only wanted properties that were between 1 and 10 acres, we could do it like this and then click acres. And that's just going to make sure that the only properties that show up on our list are the ones that fall in that range, according to the county's data, assuming that's all accurate. And then for owner occupancy, this is another one that you may want to specify. Pretty much by default, because we're looking for vacant land, it's kind of already going to be absentee. But another thing that some people do is they only send mail to the out-of-state owners. So this is people who own land in Sonoma County, but their mailing address where they live is outside of California. And the reason people do this is because when people live a long ways away from where their property is located, a lot of times that can be a fair indication that they rarely visit that property. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And in that kind of scenario, there's just a higher likelihood that those types of owners are willing to part with their property for a much lower price because it's just not in their life. They don't really care about it. There's not like a huge emotional connection to it sometimes. So that's why some people do that. I found in a lot of the deals that I've done that the owners actually did live in the same state, but they lived in like a different zip code or a different county. So I think when you click out of state, it kind of throws away a lot of potential deals as well. But if you really want to get the biggest bang for your buck and spend as little as possible on direct mail, this is one way to kind of help you to that end by clicking the out of state. So that's up to you. I'm probably going to leave it here as absentee owner. And then I'm not going to mess with any of the other ones here. When we go down here to the next item, this one right here where it says distressed, effectively what this does, say if you were to click on tax yes, the idea behind that is if we click that, it's only going to include the properties in this county that are currently back due on their property taxes. And this is actually a very, very powerful type of list because a lot of times people with delinquent taxes have a huge incentive to sell their property now for a much, much lower price than market value. And I've gotten tons and tons of deals this way. However, something I will note about this is that whenever I'm looking for a delinquent tax list, I almost always get it directly from the county and not from a service like AgentPro, because I've found, and I've heard from others who have tried this as well, that this particular line item, I don't know what it is about it, probably because it changes every single day. This changes really fast, and I don't think it's always perfectly up to date in Agent Pro's system in every single county. I think in some counties it might be, but not all of them, and it's not always easy to know which ones are up to date and which ones are not. And it doesn't always seem to flow exactly with this geographic coverage tool. Even though it looks updated there, I don't necessarily think this particular item is always perfectly up to date. So just use this with caution, and if you do choose to rely on this to generate a delinquent tax list, make sure you take the data and just cross-check it with the county. Go to their website or give them a call and just verify, is this property truly delinquent? And if so, what's the delinquent amount? Just make sure the information lines up. And if it doesn't, then you may want to just not use that at all. Just keep that in mind. Use it at your own risk. Most of the fields in this section I don't really use, but a couple of them that I have relied on in the past are this percentage improvement. And if you remember earlier when I clicked on single family residential, something we can do here is we can say we only want properties on this list that have a 0% improvement value. And when I say improvements, I mean like a site-built house or any other improvement to that property. And if we say we only want the properties with a range of 0 to 0 of improvement value, that's going to exclude any property that's zoned single family residential that has an actual house on it. And it will only include the single family residential vacant lots out there. So just keep that in mind. That's what that means. Another thing you can do here is when it says market value, you can specify that you only want properties on this list that fall in a certain market value range. So if I only wanted properties on this list that were worth between $1,000 and $100,000, that's how I would do that. And just so you understand where it's pulling that market value from, it's coming from the county's assessed value of each property, which, by the way, is usually far from perfect, and I would not necessarily consider that to be like accurate, but it's really the only data we have to go by is the county's version of what they think a property is worth. So I wouldn't necessarily consider that the gospel truth, but you have nothing else to work with and you need to narrow it down by market value. That's pretty much the only way to do it. Or you could also, if you understand how the assessed values work in your state, you could do it here as well. This next section here where it says demographics, I don't really do anything with this one. I just kind of leave those all blank. And then these other ones down here are ones that I don't use. Those are for some more expensive subscription types that I don't have and I typically don't need. So once we've got that stuff in, what we can do next is just click this count only button, and that's going to just count however many properties are in this county that fit the criteria that we've just laid out here. Okay, now as you can see here, it says 0. And this is something that happens sometimes, and I think there's several different reasons why it can happen. One potential reason could be there literally are 0 properties that fit the description that we're talking about here. Or it could be that this county's database just isn't complete enough, and the criteria that we're putting in here is too restrictive for the information they have. So what we'd have to do at this point is just start playing with the filtering criteria and just start changing it around a little bit. So for example, in the use code, I'm going to go ahead and clear this out and go a different route and pick these instead. And once we've got that, we'll go ahead and click count only, see if that makes a difference. Okay, so it still says 0. That didn't change anything. One other thing we could do, if we just take the market value and just eliminate that and click count only again, see what that tells us. Yippee, we've got 12 properties. That's not even close to enough for what I'm going to need for a direct mail campaign. Something else we could try here is just don't even do the distressed list. Just count in this way. Okay, so that increased our amount substantially. If we're not going to do the distressed tax option, something else we might want to do here is the lot size. Just get a little bit more specific about the size of properties we're willing to accept. So if we went between 1 and 5 acres instead, okay, that helped it go down a little bit. Or if we went between 5 and 10, you can see what that looks like. Okay, that shot it down quite a bit. And perhaps if we want to do only the out-of-state owners between 1 and 5, let's just see what that looks like. Okay, so that's 95. So I guess something I just want you to see through these gyrations I'm going through is that there are many, many different ways that you can specify the types of properties you want to show up on your list. And I'm not going to tell you that there's like one right way to do it, because everything you do here and every way that you tweak the filtering criteria is going to change the count that you get on your list. So it depends entirely on what types of properties you're looking for, what size properties you want, the values, where you want these owners to be located. And at the same time, you have to recognize that not all county databases are built the exact same way, and there can be fields in here where the database just doesn't have that information. And it's usually not going to tell you when that's the case. So you really just have to kind of play with it. And unfortunately, I don't think it's a perfect system. And there are some counties out there that you can kind of struggle in if you try to use Agent Pro, because the information is just not up to par with what you need in order to have the exact right kind of direct mail list. And I think this is probably true with any data service like that, is that there's always these imperfections you have to learn to live with. And a lot of times those imperfections are fewer when you get the list directly from the county. But the downside with that approach is that the information can be a lot more expensive and much, much more cumbersome to work with. So there's kind of trade-offs depending on which way you want to go. But anyway, with all that said, typically with my direct mail campaigns, I'm usually sending out anywhere from like 300 to 1,000 mail pieces at a time. So if we've currently got 95, I'm just going to try to make this a little bit bigger to up the number a little bit. Maybe I'll try to just pull in a couple other types of properties here and count it again. So once you've got a number that you're willing to work with, the nice thing about Agent Pro is that it actually allows you to view the records before you download the list. So let's go ahead and do that. And as you can see here, the nice thing about being able to see each one of these before we download the list is that a lot of times you'll get these instances where there's like one person or entity that owns a ton of properties. And in this case, we see this Oakmont Golf Club, but they have a bunch of properties, and we're not necessarily going to be sending them like 10 postcards or letters just because they own 10 properties. We just need to send them one, and that's pretty much it. So in those cases, we could just go ahead and uncheck these so that these will not be included on their list, and then those records don't get applied to our monthly limit in Agent Pro because we don't want them anyway. So that's just the nice thing about being able to see this stuff before you download your list. And we can keep going through the list, and if we see any multiple owners in here, like here's another example, we can uncheck one of those. We can do the same thing here. And all of these addresses here are the actual addresses of the properties themselves. They're not the addresses where these people are located, just so you understand that. And then we can uncheck these as well. Again, we've got more multiples. And on the same coin, if you saw anything in here like Bank of America or Sonoma County Government or something like that, those are all the types of properties that you're typically not going to be buying, because you're most likely not going to be doing business with a huge corporation or government entity like that. So if you see anything in this list that just sort of makes you think, yeah, I'm not going to be buying from them, just go ahead and uncheck them, and you'll just eliminate more wasted mail to people you're probably not going to work with. And then once your list is looking good and you have all the people that you're intending to send out to, all you have to do is click Select Records, and then just name your list, and then we'll click OK. And then we're going to click Export. And this is all the data that's going to be included in our Excel file. And for what I'm doing, I don't necessarily need all this stuff, but at the same time, it's really easy to delete it from the Excel file once I have it. And it doesn't really cost me anything more to have this extra stuff in there. So I'm just going to leave it as is. So we'll click OK, and then we will download it. And then once we've got our list, it looks something like this. As you can see, there's lots of data here. And in its raw form like this, there's a little bit of work we have to do to delete some of these fields and rearrange them into the format that we want before we can proceed with the next step of sending out the mail. So in the next video, I'm just going to show you how that works, and I'll show you how to get your list organized and put into the right format so you can proceed with the next step of sending out the mail. So if you've just seen everything we went through and you're thinking, Agent Pro looks like a pretty helpful tool, I think this is something I'm going to need in my business, I'm just going to show you really quickly how you can sign up and actually get a discount if you want to start a subscription. All you have to do on the home page is just go up here where it says subscribe now. And the first thing you're going to see is this little sign up form, and you'll see some different price ranges here, but I'll let you in on a little secret. I actually have an affiliate partner ID code, so I'll get a really small commission from this if you use it, and you'll actually get a lower price. It's pretty cool. All you have to do is type in this code, CFGRSH, and then click update. and you'll notice that all the prices get a lot lower. And the one that I'm currently using right now is this one, and this allows me to pull 1,000 farm leads a month and 50 full profile reports. And the reason I use this is because I actually use Agent Pro more for property research than I do pulling lists these days. So I actually get more use out of this because I can research up to 50 properties per month. However, if you were going to use Agent Pro strictly for doing farm lists like I just showed you, and you're not really interested in Agent Pro for the property research aspect of it, in that case you might want to use something like this, the bronze subscription. And if you want to sign up for some of these more expensive ones, that's obviously fine too. It'll just give you more access to more specialized data. I personally don't use it for what I need, but if you want to use that, it's obviously there for you. So I'm going to go back and just pick this one and then click next, and then click next again, and then click next again. And then when you get to this page, it's the usual drill where you fill out all these required fields and you can't move forward until you do that. But one thing I just want to draw your attention to, this is something people have asked me about a lot. When they get down here where it says real estate license number, a lot of people say, you know, Seth, I'm not a real estate agent, so I don't have a license number. How do I get past this if I can't fill out this required field? And it's really easy. All I got to do is put in the word investor. And as long as that word is in there, you should be able to move forward, assuming all the other fields are completed as well. When you click next, you'll just see some of the typical prompts so that you can make your payment and get signed up and finish the rest of the process. And then you should be good to go. So hopefully that all makes sense. Hopefully this video was helpful. And again, remember, pulling a list of any kind is not an exact science. There's a lot of different things you have to take into account to get the list that you're looking for. And there are times when Agent Pro 24/7 may not be the best solution for what you're trying to do. But if you do want to use this kind of service, I can tell you it makes the process way, way, way easier than a lot of other options out there. And the price is really, really hard to beat. So I think in a lot of cases, it could be just what some people are looking for. So that's all there is to it. Hopefully it all makes sense. And I'll see you in the next video.